dream apartment was actually a cage disguised as paradise. Shin moves into Terrarium Apartments thinking he finally got a break. The place looks perfect. Spotless rooms, friendly neighbors, and rent so cheap it almost feels unreal. But on his very first night, just as the clock strikes 11, he hears something slam against the ground outside his window. When he looks, nothing is there. By day, everyone smiles at him, but their words feel off, repeated, memorized. Then one night, Shin notices a man standing on the rooftop across from his window, standing completely still. When the clock strikes 11, the man suddenly jumps. What unsettles Shin even more is how casually everyone calls it a misfit, as if people falling from buildings is just part of life here. Slowly, it dawns on Shin that Terrarium isn't just a place to live, and once you're inside, getting out might not be your choice anymore. The story begins with Shin and his belongings riding in the pickup truck as he was moving into a different apartment complex. As they moved, the driver cheerfully said to Shin, "I know you came a long way, Shin, but you're finally home. You see those buildings right up there? From now on, we can call each other neighbors. I hope you're excited to live here at Terrarium Apartment." This apartment is definitely huge and looks like a high-class place, something completely out of the ordinary. As they continued moving through the complex, Shin saw two people playing badminton, a woman and a man, but the woman had her knee bleeding as she played. As they continued, the woman tried to reach for the racket and stumbled, falling to the ground. Then the woman said, as her knee bled, "Ow, my knee, what'd you do that for?" But the man replied, I didn't mean to, I swear. Let me see." Meanwhile, as they kept going, Shin noticed an old man and woman walking together on the street. The old couple greeted Shin with a bright and kind smile. Shin shyly greeted them back. Time passed, and after Shin finally finished moving his belongings into his apartment, it was already night and almost 11 p.m. As he sat tiredly in the corner, Shin thought he got really lucky when he received a flyer, because the rent at his old place was brutal. But he never imagined receiving a flyer and ending up at such a nice apartment complex. As Shin stretched his body, he still couldn't believe that he was living in a clean and high-grade apartment. Too good to be true, he thought. It seemed like a dream for him. But then his phone rang in his jacket pocket. Shin looked at his phone and saw that it was a payment reminder for his debt, showing that he owed about 71,900 USD. And with that, Shin said, "Right, I still have to deal with this. This place is so far from my work site that taking the bus would basically cost me more than I earn. I guess I'll just look for a new gig in the area tomorrow." But then, when the clock hanging on the wall hit 11 p.m., at that exact moment, Shin heard a loud thud, like something had fallen. Shin looked behind him toward the window, but he found nothing. At that moment, Shin wondered if someone tossed a sack of flour out the window or something, or maybe he was just imagining things. The next morning, Shin went straight to the management office thinking he only needed to register as a tenant. But as he stood in front of the main entrance, Shin noticed something. He saw a poster posted there for a position as a staff management member, with duties for managing community equipment for residents, and it had no requirements, and there was only one opening. Upon seeing that, Shin realized it was only a few minutes' walk from his apartment, so he wouldn't have to spend money on public transit. As he read, he heard the sound of badminton again. Shin looked behind him and saw the same two people playing, and once again, the woman fell to the ground and said the same words she said yesterday as her knee bled. Upon seeing that, Shin froze in confusion, not understanding what was happening. But suddenly, someone grabbed Shin's shoulder. It was a middle-aged woman, and she said to Shin, "There you are, the new resident in Building 2, Apartment 304, right? I've been looking for you all morning." Then Shin asked who she was and why she was looking for him. And the woman replied, "To deliver your welcome gift, of course." Then the woman introduced herself, saying that she was the community planner of the apartment complex and that it was her job to welcome all new residents and help them get settled. But Shin replied, "Oh, you really didn't have to." But the woman got a little upset and said, "Oh, come on, don't be such a stranger now. I know it's different with you young folks, but back in my day, your neighbors used to be your friends and family. You'd support each other during hard times and celebrate every single achievement like it was your own. Sometimes I find myself longing for those good old days." And with a smile, the woman said, "Let's take care of each other. We can be your new friends and family." but with a dull expression, Shin replied, sure, thank you. Then the woman asked Shin what he was doing outside the management office, saying that she already got him registered and if she could help him with anything else. And then Shin replied that he saw the job posting and asked if they were still hiring. The woman clapped her hands and happily said, "Of course we are. Oh, this is splendid. We were hoping we'd get some new employees. Why don't you come in next week and we'll get you started?" And with that, Shin's face seemed happy to finally find a job close to his apartment. At night, as Shin sat in his room, he was lively, thinking that just a couple of more years of saving and his debt should be mostly paid off. Who knows, maybe I'd stay in the apartment longer than I thought, because the place is seriously nice and it was only $100 a month. But then, the clock was about to hit 11 p.m. again as Shin planned to sleep. But before he could move, he noticed something. Outside the window, he saw a man standing on the top of the building. Upon seeing that, Shin wondered what that man was doing up there. But Shin ignored it as he covered his window with the curtain and started walking to his bed. But when the clock hit exactly 11 p.m. once more, Shin heard the loud thud, like something had fallen. Shin rushed to his window and looked outside, but the man on top of the building was gone. Shin looked below and found nothing. Shin was wondering if the man had jumped, but as he looked out his window, without him knowing, other tenants from another apartment were creepily spying on him, leaning against the wall as if trying to listen inside his room. The next morning, outside his apartment, as he glared at the top of the building, he kept thinking that the man he saw last night should have landed around there somewhere. But then the middle-aged woman appeared and said, "Hi there, looking for something?" Shin replied that he was wondering if anything happened in the apartment complex yesterday. The woman asked what Shin meant. Then Shin said, did anyone get hurt? But the woman smiled and said, "Don't be silly. Of course no one got hurt. Things like that don't happen here. We're all about keeping things nice and peaceful." And with that, Shin reluctantly agreed. But without him knowing, on the very top of the building where the man stood at night, multiple same color and same brand shoes were scattered across the rooftop. Then, at night, as Shin sat in his room again, he kept thinking that the apartment complex was pretty much perfect, no doubt about it. The rent was cheap, the facilities were sparkling clean, and even the neighbors were nice. But even so, Shin felt like something was terribly wrong. Shin leaned to his window thinking that it was probably just all in his head, that he was simply getting used to a new environment, that's all. But then he looked at the clock and observed that it was about to hit exactly 11 p.m. Before it reached 11 p.m., Shin froze as he felt a chill crawl up the back of his neck, like his gut was warning him. At that moment, Shin looked behind him toward the window, and there again, on the very top of the building, was the same man standing. Then Shin opened his window and shouted loudly, "Excuse me, sir, get down! What are you doing up there? You could slip and fall!" But the man ignored Shin's warning and instead stepped closer to the edge of the building. Shin shouted again, "Wait, don't!" But the man was already standing on the edge and one of his shoes was missing. With that, Shin rushed outside, thinking that he wasn't imagining any of this, that at the exact same time and place as yesterday, the exact same people were doing the exact same things, saying "nice to meet you" into an empty space even though no one was there. From outside the apartment building, as Shin ran and saw the man on top, he shouted, "Sir, please get down, don't move!" But the man ignored him once again and jumped from the very top of the building, and before he fell to the ground, Shin and the man's eyes met. The man's eyes were terrifyingly wide open as he clenched his teeth angrily, and then he hit the ground with a loud thud.
Then the scene shifted to the past. He remembered something someone once told him, that when you're really shocked, your mind just goes blank and your body locks up. And that was exactly what happened to Shin when his father passed away, back when he was only 8. He remembered his mother bawling on the ground, and there he was, completely frozen, unable to even cry. The exact same thing happened during the spring he became an adult, when he found his mother unconscious. Shin was rooted to the spot like a statue, terrified that he was about to lose the only family he had left. Even now, 5 years later in the present, he could feel it happening all over again. He couldn't move, he couldn't do anything. His heart started pounding hard and fast as he wondered if the man in front of him was dead. But then the man suddenly started coughing and crawling forward, choking out, "Come to me, cur!" Shin rushed closer, raising his voice, "Sir, are you all right?" But the man kept repeating it, "Come to me." While Shin held him up, he noticed the man's clothes were torn apart and his body was covered in bruises. There was no way those came from just one fall. Shin grabbed his phone. "Stay right there, sir. I'm calling an ambulance." But the man kept crawling, repeating louder and louder, "Come here!" Shin tried to stop him, shouting that he was injured, but the man thrashed and shoved forward anyway. Seconds later, he suddenly went still. Shin gasped, "Sir, are you all right?" The man slowly turned and stared at him with wide eyes and growled, cold and furious, "I missed it because of you." He suddenly lunged, grabbing Shin's shirt and pinning him down. "I was so close. I could have done it on time. I was doing such a good job." Then he screamed right in his face, "I was right there. Then you ruined everything. This is your fault. Everything went wrong after you showed up. We were fine until you came. It's all your fault." Shin started losing consciousness, hearing footsteps rushing toward them. A security guard charged in and slammed the man off him, throwing him down to the ground. As the guard held him down, Shin slowly lifted his head, shaking, and thanked him. He asked what on earth was wrong with that man and why he suddenly attacked him. The guard just said, flat and cold, "Don't worry about it, just one of the misfits." Shin asked what he meant by misfits, but the guard leaned in, voice sharp. "I said don't worry about it." Right then, a middle-aged woman along with two people in white uniforms ran toward Shin, asking if he was hurt or okay. "My goodness, I'm so sorry. This should never have happened." Shin demanded to know why she was apologizing. She explained that there's actually an inpatient hospital inside the apartment complex, and sometimes patients slip past caregivers. She said he used to be kind and gentle, but after his family died in an accident, sometimes he just has episodes. She smiled gently. "I'm sure he doesn't do it on purpose, though. I hope you understand, young man." Shin snapped back, loud and furious. "How am I supposed to understand? I just watched a man fall from a building, then he tried to strangle me, and the security guard isn't making any sense. I think I deserve an explanation. I saw him jump from that roof at the exact same time 2 nights in a row." Then a deep voice behind him spoke, calm but heavy. "Please allow me to explain. My apologies, I should have come to you earlier. I'm Taebuk Ma, the manager of this apartment complex. Is now a good time to speak?" This guy was massive. Tall, broad shoulders, intimidating presence. Later inside the manager's office, he bowed his head to Shin, apologizing over and over, saying he should have visited Shin the day he moved in and that he deeply regretted that they had to meet under these circumstances. Shin stared at him strangely, confused why everyone was apologizing on behalf of the man who just jumped. He said he only wanted to know if the man was okay. The manager smiled, saying he was perfectly fine, already back at the hospital being treated. Shin still looked confused. Then the manager held up something and asked if Shin knew what it was. He explained that a small jar contained moisture, plants, and microorganisms, and that with the right balance, it could maintain an ecosystem for decades, almost like a miniature Earth. This glass jar, he said, is called a terrarium. Only then did Shin realize this apartment complex was literally called a terrarium. The manager explained the concept, the mountains and high walls protecting them, the isolation, the rules, the balance they worked so hard to maintain. Then he said calm, "I know this feels strange, but you're one of us now. You're starting work in the office tomorrow, right? Excellent. I'm sure you'll adapt in no time." Later that night, Shin collapsed into bed feeling exhausted, staring at the glass jar the manager gave him as a welcome gift. He decided just to sleep. Hours later, around 3 a.m., his bedroom door slowly creaked open. Someone grabbed Shin by the head and dragged him out. Something covered his mouth. A blindfold ripped off his eyes. He blinked and found himself standing at the very top of the building where that man had jumped. Shin struggled trying to free his tied hands, but he couldn't. Suddenly, the same man appeared at the opposite side of the rooftop window and shouted, loud and echoing, "Come to me!" He kept repeating it, louder and louder, staring right at Shin. Shin started shaking, trying to step back, but he bumped into someone. He turned, eyes wide. The manager stood right behind him, smiling in the cruelest way. "My sincere apologies, Mr. Shin." And then he shoved Shin off the roof. Shin fell, crashing toward the ground. And he woke up hitting the floor beside his bed. It was just a dream. He lay there panting, then heard a loud commotion outside. He looked through the window and saw another tenant yelling angrily at 2 men in white uniforms. Shin just sighed, annoyed. Great, loud chaos first thing in the morning.
Then, moments later, at the management office building, the woman said to Shin, "I know you must have been shaken by what happened last night. Did you manage to get any sleep?" Shin replied and said that he had a few hours of sleep and that he felt alive enough to work at least. Then the woman said that he had spirit, that it was good to be young. Then the woman opened the door as she said that they already arrived at the work area. Then she explained and said, "You see these boxes? This is your quota for the day. Your job is to deliver the supplies to each building in 10-minute intervals. The residents use these constantly, so they're very important." But upon seeing it, Shin began sweating as he saw that there were a lot of boxes. Then the woman reminded Shin not to break anything, that the supplies were very expensive. Then Shin replied and said that he felt that the job was a bit too much for one person. Then the woman smiled and giggled as she said, "Don't worry, you'll get used to it in no time. Every job has a learning curve after all. And just so you know, you can't clock out until you finish everything for today." Then hours passed and it was already dark. Shin locked the main entrance of the management office as he sighed. Then he began scratching his head as he said, "No wonder they didn't have any requirement for this job. What kind of job keeps you from morning to night on your very first day?" Then, when he was about to go home, Shin began searching for his phone in his pocket, and his phone was gone. Then he remembered that he'd left his phone inside his working area, and with that, he had no other choice but to open it and go inside to get his phone. Then moments later, Shin arrived at the storage room on the second floor. Shin grabbed the doorknob as he tried to open it. Then suddenly Shin froze when he heard a sound behind him. Shin asked himself what it was and if there was someone still in the building, but he knew to himself that he was the last person to leave. Then Shin started walking, following the direction of the sounds. Shin peeked around the hallway and what he saw shocked him. He saw the same man who jumped last night being dragged by the same two persons in white uniforms. The man struggled as he tried to free himself. Upon seeing that, Shin hid behind the wall as he leaned on it thinking about what was going on. That the man he saw was the same man from last night, and he wondered that if they were taking him to the hospital, why were they dragging him like that? And Shin also remembered those two men in white uniforms, that they showed up after the man jumped and he also saw them earlier in the morning. Then suddenly the tie in the man's mouth loosened as he shouted loudly and said, "Please, it wasn't my fault, you know that. I followed all the rules, didn't I? He's the one who ruined it, the newcomer." For Shin, nothing he saw and heard made any sense. As the man's mouth was tied up again, Shin used the hood of his jacket as he planned to follow them, because he knew that the newcomer the man mentioned could only be him, that maybe that's why he followed them instinctively. But as Shin followed them, a silhouette of someone behind Shin was observing him and also started to follow him. Moments after minutes of following, he arrived at a door where he could hear rattling sound behind it. Then Shin grabbed the doorknob as he opened it. Upon opening the door, Shin saw an empty room with an open window in it, and inside that room there was another door. Upon seeing the door, Shin knew that the sound was coming from behind that door. Without hesitation, Shin went after the door. Behind the door, Shin could hear the sound of a staple gun being used. Then behind that door, someone spoke with a deep voice and said, "This man has defiled the peace of his neighbors, a grave crime indeed. But I too have failed to shepherd him toward the path of light." Upon hearing the voice, Shin knew in his gut that he heard that voice before, but he couldn't tell or remember who it was. So, at that moment, to confirm it, he peeked at the hole of the door and what he saw terrified him. Behind the door, he saw the man struggling as he was being tied to a wooden cross, and behind the man was the huge manager holding a whip in his hand. The group of people in white robes started crying loudly as they shouted, "It's my fault! Mine alone!" Then the manager repeated the same words as he snapped the whip on his back. Then, at that moment, the manager started whipping the man's body as he was tied and blindfolded at the cross, and as the manager kept hitting him, he kept repeating the same words. Then, moments later, the manager stopped as the man was unconscious, or probably dead, as his whole body was bleeding. The manager was crying as he said the words for the last time and said, "Mine alone." Upon seeing that, Shin covered his mouth as he stepped backward. But as he stepped backward, Shin bumped into something that made a sound. Everyone behind the door heard it as they looked toward the door. The manager looked at the security guard as he nodded, signaling him something. The security guard understood it as he started walking toward the door holding a bat. Meanwhile, Shin was trying to open the door to get out, but he couldn't open it. It seemed the door was broken. Then suddenly, behind the open window, the person that was following him appeared.
Without a choice, the person leapt at the window to enter the room to save Shin. Finally, the security guard opened the door, and what he found was nothing. The guard looked at the door and he saw that it was making noise because of the wind coming from the window. Upon seeing that, the guard slowly closed the door, but without him knowing, behind that open door was the woman that followed Shin, covering Shin's mouth. And the woman said quietly to Shin, "Shh." Then, moments later, Shin and the woman finally escaped from the room as they ran into the street. As they ran, Shin asked the woman where she was taking him. But the woman replied and said not to talk and just follow her, saying that she would explain everything as soon as they were inside the apartment. Inside the room, the woman locked the door as she sighed, and then she turned to Shin as she said loudly, "What were you thinking? That was such a rash thing to do." Shin tried to calm her down, but the woman continued and said, "Imagine if they'd caught you. What would you have done then?" Then the woman explained that Shin was lucky that she had been following him the entire time, and if not, who knows what those people would be doing to him right now. Shin was confused as he looked beside him, and Shin saw two men sitting on the other side of the room. Then Shin spoke and said, "Look, I appreciated your help, but who were you and who were the people sitting over there?" Then the woman spoke and said she should have introduced herself earlier. "My name is Hana Oh. We moved in on the exact same day." Then Shin looked at the man beside him as the man said, "I'm Woojin Lee. I also moved in the same day as you, and now I'm working at the shipment facility in the complex." But the other man sitting afar just glared at Shin. Upon seeing him, Shin remembered him that he was the same man shouting so loudly at the two men in white uniforms earlier in the morning. Then Hana spoke and introduced him instead and said, "That's Sungshel Han. He also moved here on the same day as the rest of us." Then Shin asked if what she was saying was that all four of them moved in on the same day. Then Hana replied that yes, they were the only outsiders in this complex who all happened to move in on the same day. Upon hearing that, Shin gulped as he asked Hana why she brought him inside. Then Hana replied and said, "I thought you would have guessed by now. We're here to talk about how every day seems to repeat itself in this complex."
Moments later, Shin began explaining what he had found. That the first day he moved in, which was 3 days ago, he met an elderly couple who greeted him, and he also saw a young couple playing badminton. But those people were in the exact same places the next day, at the same time, and even doing the same things. At first, Shin chalked it up to coincidence or thought he had just been mistaken, but now that he thinks about it, that woman's knee was already scraped up before she even fell. Suddenly, Hana slammed her hand on the table and said with frustration, "See, that's exactly what I was talking about. You still think I was just seeing things?" Woojin replied and said, "Calm down, whoa, just hear me out, Hana. I let you have this gathering at my apartment since you made it sound so urgent, but I honestly think you two just misinterpreted their daily routines. Is it really that strange for some residents to have their own routines? For example, I always do a 30-minute run at 7 in the morning. I get the feeling you were a little freaked out by something very normal." Hana freaked out as she said, "What do you mean normal? I know those weren't just routines. How can you still doubt me after hearing it from two witnesses?" Woojin replied and said, "No, that's not what I'm saying. I believe you. You have to understand though, you're pushing this idea on me without any solid proof. What you're suggesting is hard for anyone to believe, don't you think? Honestly, it's a little absurd." Then Shin coldly said, "So do you think he imagined a man jumping off a building?" Woojin asked Shin what he was talking about. Shin continued and said in a shaken voice, "I saw him. He'd climb the same building every night and jump, always at the exact same time. Once he was only a few feet away when he hit the ground." Then Shin said loudly, shouting in frustration, "Are you trying to tell me I didn't know what I saw with my own eyes? And I just told you I saw people in the management office torturing someone, the same man I saw jumping off that building over and over." Upon hearing all of that, Sungchal threw the registration form in front of them as he said loudly with anger, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me. What a waste of time. I have better things to do than sit here and listen to your nonsense. I've been having a real bad week, you know that? Ever since I moved here, those stalkers in white uniforms keep showing up at my door. And then that creepy community planner, she changed my address without even asking. Doesn't that sound aggravating to you, huh? I only came because Hana begged me to, said it was urgent or whatever. I thought maybe I could get some people together and get back at those creeps. But what, you're suggesting that we're living every day in the same loop? You saw someone jump off a building, then do it again the very next day? Something about the manager torturing someone with a whip? Sungchal angrily said as he clenched his teeth. "I don't have time for this ridiculous crap. Have fun with your little skit. I'm out." And with that, Sungchal left the room as he slammed the door closed. Inside the room, Woojin spoke as he said that, like he was saying, what they were proposing was hard to believe. "Let's just say you're actually onto something. So what? Are you going to call the police, report that the residents were repeating the same actions over and over? Or will you tell them a man was jumping from a building every night at the exact same time?" At that moment, Woojin sighed, saying that what he was saying was they had it all backwards, that the first thing they needed was proof to back up their words. Then Woojin said, "Why don't we do some digging ourselves and call the police once we actually have some convincing evidence?" And with that, Hana's expression beamed with a smile. Then Woojin turned to Shin as he asked if the plan sounded good to him. Shin agreed and insisted to do it. Meanwhile, as Sunchal walked toward his apartment, he said with bitterness that he couldn't believe he sat and listened to that crap for so long. But when he looked in front of him, he saw the same two men in white uniforms leaning into his apartment door as they were trying to creepily listen inside. Upon seeing that, Sungchal's eyes went wide as he grew angry. He dashed forward as he said angrily and loud, "What the hell do you think you're doing in front of my apartment, huh?" Then the other man in white uniform smiled as he said, "It did not realize that you were not home, that we had been waiting for you, and that we would love to talk to you." But at that moment, Sungchal grabbed his clothes and yelled, "You think this is some kind of joke? I told you not to show your face here again, didn't I?" But he smiled as he laughed and said, "It'll only take a moment. I promise. We won't bother you anymore after this." But Sungchal grew more angry as he said loudly, "What are you smiling about? What's so funny? You got any idea who you're messing with?" But without Sungchal knowing, the security guard appeared behind him, raising his bat, ready to strike him. The next morning, after Shin finished some of his work, he decided to look out the window and observe the people outside. Once again, he saw the same old couple waving at an empty space. He also saw the young couple playing badminton. At that moment, Shin remembered their plan from last night, watch the residents and figure out their daily routines to see if anything suspicious was happening. Hana was working outside the complex so she could stay near the main exit, while Shin was assigned to observe what happened around the management office during his shift. Woojin reminded Shin, "Make sure you record a video if you ever see the same man jump again. It'll be valuable evidence when we report everything to the police." With that, Shin began taking notes as the three of them observed the residents, trying to figure out their routines. At night, they met at Woojin's apartment and reviewed the information they gathered. With each meeting, their suspicions began turning into reality. After 3 days of observing, Hana showed her notes that were taken on different days, yet the routines were exactly the same. Woojin stared at them and began stammering, This is impossible. These aren't just simple habits or routines. It's like they're living the same day over and over. But why? Why are they doing this? I don't understand." Days passed as they began their fourth meeting. Shin spoke, "While observing the residents for the past 4 days, I realized there are some rules in this apartment complex. 1, all the residents repeat the same actions from 7 a.m. until 11:30 p.m. every single day, and they act like we don't exist, which is pretty unsettling. They didn't even respond when I tried talking to them. 2, many residents leave empty spaces between them as if someone's supposed to be interacting with them. I was watching 2 workers move boxes, and I'm sure they were talking to a third person who wasn't really there, taking and handing off invisible boxes to an imaginary worker. 3, there are no children in this apartment complex, only adults acting like they're much younger than they actually are. 4, there are some people who are free from the rules, like the people dressed in white or the security guards dressed in black. I guess we can add the community planner and the manager to that list. And last but not least, there are no cars or parking garages. The only vehicle I've seen is the pickup truck we used when we moved in." Well, that's about it. What do you think? Upon hearing all of that, Hana and Woojin were completely shocked and terrified. Woojin spoke, "What do you mean? What do you think? That's the creepiest thing I've ever heard. Imaginary workers, adults acting like they're kids? What the hell is going on here? Is this apartment complex a giant cult or something? I think we need to move out. If we stay here another day, who knows what they might do to us?" Hana suddenly began puking, completely terrified by what she heard. "I'm sorry, just feeling a bit nauseous after all that." Woojin started helping Hana and told Shin that they should wrap up the discussion and meet again tomorrow. The next day inside the management office while Shin was working, he took a deep breath and told himself that maybe he should have toned it down, that he didn't mean to scare them. But then he bumped the papers and sighed, "Whatever, I'll just wrap things up and head out." Shin looked at the fallen shipment record, picked it up and checked it. He noticed the date written, April 15th. He looked at his phone and found it strange since he knew today was March 22nd. He flipped the record thinking someone must have written it by mistake, but upon flipping it over, he was shocked to see the same date, April 15th. Shin looked toward the record cabinet and rushed over, opening it quickly. He pulled out all the records and checked every one. They were all recorded as April 15th. With that, Shin muttered, "Does that mean this complex has been living that day on repeat?" Then Shin noticed something and picked up a torn piece of newspaper. Printed on it was the date, April 15th, 1992, Wednesday. Suddenly, a man appeared behind him and said, "I figured you'd find you here, you little rat." Hearing that, Shin felt a chill crawl up his spine as he turned to look, but the man grabbed him by the hair and said, "Did no one teach you to clean up after yourself?" Shin was completely confused. The man continued, "Blood, not this garbage again. I'm tired of hearing your nonsense." Shin shouted, "What are you talking about? Who even are you? You've got the wrong person." But the man threw a bottle at Shin's head, missing him by inches. "All right then, if you love blood so much, I'll drown you in your own." He kicked Shin, but Shin asked what his problem was, saying he didn't even know him. The man replied, "You know, I never liked you. I always knew you would mess something up big time. Well, you're in luck because I'm going to screw your head on." Before the man could continue, Shin punched him square in the nose. The man grew furious and kicked Shin again. He began shouting loudly as he continued kicking him. "I've told you 1,000 times you better watch yourself around me." Then he started punching Shin, and as Shin began losing consciousness, he wondered why. No matter how many times he asked, the man refused to answer who he was. At that moment, Shin realized something. All of the man's comments were one-sided. On top of that, the man wasn't even looking at him. The entire time he had been staring at something above Shin's head, even when he threw the bottle. Shin realized the man wasn't actually trying to beat him up. He was just acting out his routine, another pattern of the complex. Shin dodged the attack and glanced back at the man. The man kept kicking the cabinet and shouted, "You're a waste of oxygen."
Moments later, Shin stepped out of the building. It was already dark, rain pouring down, and just as he was about to head home, prepared to walk through the rain, Hana appeared holding an umbrella. She smiled and asked Shin if he had just gotten off work. Meanwhile, at the shipment office where Woojin worked, he stared out the window, still worrying about Hana after everything that happened yesterday. He was even considering canceling their meeting, but then the door burst open as his coworker came in. "Good work, Woojin. You can go home now." Woojin looked confused. "I thought we were working overtime today to get everything done." "That was the plan," the man replied, "but something came up. Besides, it's pouring out there. An apartment complex like ours, built on a hillside, could easily have a landslide with all this rain. So go on home and get some rest, all right?" After locking the cabinet, the man left, calling out from the hallway, "I'm off. Make sure you lock up before you leave." Before leaving, Woojin began arranging the papers on the table, silently questioning why his coworker didn't have a routine like all the other residents. Woojin knew he wasn't one of those people in white uniforms, yet he could talk to him perfectly normally. As Woojin glanced at the cabinet, he wondered if there was a rule they had missed. Noticing the padlock wasn't fully secured, he approached it and opened the cabinet. What he saw made sweat run down his back. Inside were several white robes, the same robes worn by the manager's followers during the torture of that man. Meanwhile, Hana invited Shin into her apartment. She apologized for the mess, saying she was still in the process of unpacking, but Shin insisted it was fine, that there was nothing to worry about. Then, Hana told Shin she'd be right back for a moment as she walked further into her room. Shin remembered how Hana invited him, how she said she wanted to show him something and asked if he wanted to come to her place. Thinking about it made Shin blush. It was his first time inside a woman's apartment, and he couldn't stop wondering what Hana wanted to show him. As he looked around, he noticed an open door. He peeked inside and saw a strange device glowing green. Shin wondered what it was, thinking it looked like some kind of unusual machine. Suddenly, Hana came rushing out in a panic. "No, no, please don't look in there." She slammed the door shut and locked it while Shin apologized over and over. Moments later, Hana explained. It was a home medical device. She had been battling respiratory conditions since childhood, severe asthma, pneumonia, and occasional attacks that could be fatal. Having the device close by was far more reliable than rushing to the hospital every time. She sighed and admitted, "This is a bit embarrassing. I was hoping I could keep it a secret." But Shin told her there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Hana replied, "You only say that because you've never seen one of my asthma attacks." The atmosphere turned quiet for a moment before Shin stammered,
You said you wanted to show me something, right? Hana pulled out a piece of paper. Yes, thanks for reminding me. Do you remember the paperwork Sengshaw was ranting about? The one with his wrong address? I did some digging on that address, and look what I found. She showed him a layout of Mukdan Apartments. The layout was identical to Terium Apartments. Shin stared in shock as Hana continued. I think an apartment complex with the exact same layout as this place existed at some point in time. Shin suddenly remembered the daily inventory log and muttered, April 15th, 1992. He began searching his pockets. I found this in the management office earlier today, and all the logs had only one date on them, April 15th, 1992. Maybe that date is connected to the point in time you're talking about. Hana grabbed her phone and started searching the internet. What they discovered made both of their eyes widen. On April 15, 1992, a shocking incident involving multiple sexual assaults and a murder had occurred at Mukdan Apartments. The perpetrator was a man nearly 7.5 feet tall. His enormous stature had caused a huge public outcry. Shin and Hana looked at each other. They both knew instantly. It was definitely the apartment manager. Meanwhile, in a different location, a group of people wearing white robes were gathered as they searched for someone. Woojin's coworker shouted loudly, complaining why we have to clean up after those security guards, huh? None of this would be an issue if Chuho did his job in the first place. Not far from them, Woojin started recording them on his phone as they talked. He wondered who they were searching for and who this Chuho was. Woojin even grabbed one of the white robes from a cabinet just in case he might need it. After recording the video, he planned to leave immediately. But before Woojin could leave, a man appeared behind him. Hey there, what are you doing here at this hour? All residents should have completed their daily routines by now. Woojin's heart pounded hard as he stayed silent. The man grew irritated, turned on his flashlight and shouted, Answer me! But what he saw was Woojin wearing the white robe. The man spoke again. What are you still doing here? The minister wants everyone involved in the search. The others have already headed in. Woojin answered, I know, I heard his orders. The man snapped, Am I your friend? Woojin quickly replied, I heard his orders, sir. My stomach is killing me, that's all. The man glared at Woojin. Get in there, enough loitering around. If the search comes up empty again, we're all screwed. With no choice, Woojin joined the group and began searching inside the building. While they searched, Woojin pulled his hood low, fully covering his head, thinking he needed to find an opening to escape. Then, one of the robed men reported to Woojin's coworker, now clearly the minister, that there was nothing in his direction. The minister ordered his men to split up. With that, Woojin found his chance to slip away, entering a different room silently. Inside, he locked the door and lay down on the floor, whispering, Whew, that was a close one. I was starting to fear for my life, honestly. But as he lay there, something dripped onto his nose. Woojin looked up, and what he saw terrified him. Above him hung Sengshel's dead body, tied upside down, blood dripping. Woojin covered his mouth to keep himself from screaming. Sengshel looked horrific, his eyes nearly completely black, his mouth stretched wide open. Upon seeing that, Woojin panicked and bolted out of the building. As he ran, he fell to the ground and vomited outside, completely horrified. They killed him. They murdered him. But he was alive earlier this week. We were all talking together. Hana, Shin, and he were there too. He was alive back then. Woojin's eyes widened as he remembered Hana. He immediately tried calling her, panicking and shaking, but Hana didn't hear her phone ringing. They were too busy searching online. With no other option, Woojin sprinted straight to Hana's apartment, praying she was safe. After minutes of running, he finally reached her door. Woojin began pounding on it frantically. Hana, you in there? Open up! Answer me, please! Hana opened the door, confused. Woojin, what is going on? Seeing her, Woojin finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hana asked him to explain what was happening, saying they thought they were meeting at his place. Then she added, How did you even figure out my address? I don't think I ever told you. But Woojin grabbed her shoulders and said, That's not important right now. Listen, we need to get out. Before he could finish, Shin appeared behind Hana. Woojin stared, confused. Why are you two together? But there was no time to explain. Woojin grabbed them both and started pulling them off. Whatever, no time to explain. Just follow me. Shin tried to calm him down, asking what was going on and why he was dragging them off, but Woojin shoved them into a pickup truck. Buckle up, we're getting out of here.
Shin demanded answers again, and Woojin finally shouted, "I saw him! Sengshel is dead! I saw him hanging from the ceiling, his whole body! You were right, there's something seriously wrong with these people." Hana covered her mouth. "There's no way they actually killed someone." "They did! I saw him!" Woojin yelled. "They murdered him!" Even if that weren't true, we can all agree something strange is going on in this apartment complex. As Woojin drove, Shin suddenly shouted, "Watch out!" 2 security guards were standing in the road, blocking their escape. Woojin clenched his teeth and slammed on the gas. The security guards jumped aside, barely being hit as Woojin sped past them. As they continued driving, Shin noticed something. On a nearby tree, a person was looming, holding a knife in his hand. And then, as they pushed forward, sand came falling from above, a landslide.
Coming through.